I'm making another album, or at least I was this morning, but yesterday and the day before I wasn't making another album at all because I didn't manage to do any splurging or anything at all on the album. I intended to a couple of days ago, but pretty soon it was like I had an early call, as I often do. In fact, I think I almost always do, apart from today. Today's a Sunday. So I had an early call, and for various different boring reasons, I couldn't splurge before that early call, because what I'm attempting to do, most of my calls, most of my sessions that I do with clients and groups, particularly groups, start at my 5 a.m. in the morning, because I'm in Australia, and that is a good time for most of the time zones where the people I help are. So UK and North America and Europe are where most of the people are, not everyone, but most of the people are, and that particular time, my very early morning, works well. So what I'm trying to do when I can is splurge before that. And I know you might think, what on earth? But I do get up insanely early, just in general. It's like I kind of feel like I'm a night owl the wrong way round. So maybe I'm a night eagle or something. but basically, I am a night owl, but I just happen to be the early morning night. So I tend to get up anywhere from 3 to 4. But I had a lie-in this morning because I got up at 4:30. So yeah, I mean, 5 o'clock is late for me because I really do like that nighttime thing. But I find that at the end of the day, I'm spent. Like, I can't really function. I'm only good for kind of, vague gruntings and not much creative thinking, which can have its benefits sometimes, actually, for doing crazy things. So maybe I'll try it at some point. But certainly, I tend to be a very, very early morning person. So I didn't get to do it before do anything for those sessions, and after that first one, I decided, okay, I've got this session today and another one tomorrow, which I knew, which was yesterday. But I knew the one yesterday was going to be a really long one, so I decided to not splurge, not work on the album for a couple of days. And this is something I think it's important to talk about just briefly, which is I always think it's better to make a decision not to do something than to force yourself to do it, or say you're going to do it when it's highly unlikely you will. I'm not really talking, so I'm all about doing impossible things and trying to, thinking about impossible goals. In fact, at this time of year, that's certainly what I'm doing. And if you haven't subscribed to my PodWalk podcast, then do so, because as I'm recording this, it's December. It's the 11th of December, and I'm going to do a special festive season of the PodWalk where I kind of take you through the kind of thing I do at this time of year to plan ahead into 2023. So I'm going to do a special festive season of the PodWalk, so I go over there. But anyway, I'm all about doing impossible things and dreaming impossible dreams and hitting impossible goals in general. But in the day-to-day, because it literally is realistic, you're in it, I am more realistic. So if it looks like I'm not going to be able to do something, I go, all right, I'm not going to do it. And then I've created the intention not to do it, rather than spending the whole time beating myself up about the fact that I'm not doing something that I probably was never going to do anyway. So I decided on my Thursday morning not to splurge on Thursday and Friday. And I knew that would mean that today, not Thursday and Friday. What am I talking about? Friday and Saturday. So, because it's Sunday today. Yeah. So Friday and Saturday. So, but I knew that would mean that I would find it more challenging to do anything on a Sunday. So when I finished working, because basically I work through the normal weekend, Saturday and Sunday, and aside from my Magic Music Machine call on my Monday, I have Monday, Tuesday and Wednesday off. I tend to do things in the early morning anyway, because everyone else, the rest of my family aren't weird and crazy like me, so they're in bed. So I do things on those mornings. It's an opportunity to do music, for instance, and kind of deeper thinking things. But so I have Monday, Tuesday and Wednesday off, which is why I'm walking and talking today. So, but because of that 2-day hiatus, I knew, and by the way, I do suggest daily practice is ideal, and I'm sure I could have done a 5-minute splurge, but I'm absolutely overwhelmed right now with a lot of stuff. I was finishing up the case study team. Those were the calls that I had that I'm doing, and I'm starting another program, Make an Album with Mike, that I did a early version of it back in 2016, but it's essentially a completely new program, and I'm doing all of these different podcasts. So I had a lot to do. So I was like, right, I'm just not even going to worry about album for now. Let's focus on the priority. And so I decided not to, and it's a great way of kind of freeing up space. But coming back to it when you have a hiatus is more challenging, because you kind of lose the thread of what you're doing. And this is a way in which the Music Machine, and having like a Trello template, if you want to look at my Music Machine, link in the show notes with all the stuff I'm doing and talking about. So it's really good to have a Music Machine, because you can easily just come back to it and just look and go, oh, that's what I did, that's what I was thinking about, that's what I was supposed to be doing, and it gets you back on the same page super fast. So before I went to bed, and also at the end of my work day, I got clear on exactly what I was going to do when I woke up. I was going to get up, and first thing I was going to do, I was going to splurge, and I was going to splurge I was going to do two songs, and these were the instruments I was going to use. That's what I kind of told myself. The reason for that was that making as many decisions up front, particularly when you've fallen off for a bit, making as many decisions up front as to exactly what you're going to do will make it much easier for you to get over that little hump, right? Because a lot of motivation just comes from momentum. You know, if you're like, think about a rock on a hill, it's a big, massive rock. It's really, really hard to get it going. But once it's going, you don't need to do anything. It's just going, right? So when you're in momentum, it's actually pretty simple to keep going. But actually getting into momentum, even after a short hiatus like a 2-day break, there is going to be a bit of a bump. So how do you remove the rocks from in front of the big rock, the things that are blocking it? Well, before you actually do the thing, so in my case, before I went to bed, when I finish work, I say to myself, all right, exactly what am I going to do? I make all of those decisions, so I don't have to think about it. I can just do it. It's a little bit like if you want to go for a run. Apparently, anyway, I don't do this kind of thing, but apparently, if you want to go for a run, a really good thing to do is set up all your stuff the night before and put your running shoes by the door and all that kind of thing. So that's essentially what I did. So I've just splurged twice, and I really did feel a moment of, I think, what people call resistance. But it was just I don't want to do this. I felt like that. But it was just a moment, which I think you'll notice is, unless you obsess about this resistance feeling, is all it is. It's just a moment. So I just did it. But because I'd made the decisions, it was easy. And I started splurging again. And I'll be honest with you, another thing that's helping is knowing that I'm doing this in public, is the fact that I know you're listening. So thank you. I'm very, very grateful to you. And I know you watch it, I know you're watching with, or there could be people watching by sharing my Music Machine Trello board publicly as well. So it's like, again, I've created the conditions where I have to do it. So let's talk about the approach I'm taking right now. because I've decided I'm singing. I did an episode about that called To Sing or Not to Sing. I think it was episode 2 or something, so have a listen to that if you haven't. I decided to sing, and that has meant that I'm doing, I've actually, a lot of the equipment that I probably will use in this album is not turned on. It's just sitting to the side at the moment, and I'm just focused on me with a keyboard. I'm not worried about tempo, and the problem, the difficulty, the challenge right now is that I'm having to think about a lot of things at once, because I haven't sung for a very long time. I've never written my own songs. I mean, I've done a fair amount of splurging lyrics and thinking about that kind of stuff, but I've never written songs of my own. And so there's the performance aspect of singing, and there's the lyric writing part of singing, which is, I don't want to say it's separate, but it is a different type of activity, if you like, to writing music. It's related, but they are kind of separate skills in a sense. And I'm attempting to improve two at once. So how do I do that and still make progress on the album? Actually still actually create stuff, rather than just, doing vocal exercises or reading books about lyric writing or whatever it might be. So my approach, because I suppose I could find the time. I'm not sure I could though. I don't feel like I have the time to be simply practicing my singing. I don't feel like I have the time to, maybe I do, but I can tell you what, I probably wouldn't do it, right? So if I'm telling myself I must do something that I won't do, where's that going to lead me? It's going to lead me to giving up. So what I'm attempting to do is find a way to practice while writing. So I designed a splurge a couple of days ago, a splurge game with particular rules. And what's hilarious about it is when I started this morning, one thing I didn't remind myself to do was review the splurge game. So I actually forgot about an important part of it. And I may well be forgetting about an important part of it now, because I still haven't reviewed it. I forgot to do that even after the splurges. But essentially, here's how it goes. And really what I'm trying to do here is find a way to be practicing while writing. So it's like I'm not just writing, and I'm not just practicing. I'm kind of doing both. So, and when I say writing, I mean making ideas for the album. So in terms of the lyrics side of it, I'm very interested in words. If you've been coached by me, you will notice this. I do listen to what I say and what people say very carefully. And I love language, which in a sense blows my mind that I've not written lyrics before. But I just love what you can do with language and the different kind of flavors different words have. I can't remember if I've said this on this podcast, but if you just feel the difference between the word should, I should do this, and if you just change it to I could do this, it has a very different feeling to it, a very different flavor, texture almost to it. And so I absolutely love words, and playing with words, in my lyrics or in the lyrics, even very simply, not clever words necessarily, but playing with words seems to be important to me. It's certainly something that I'm responding to. And what so what I've decided to do, and something else that I've in splurging these, in scare quotes, songs. So when I splurge a song, I'm literally improvising the whole thing, the melody, the chords, and the lyrics at the same time, which you can understand is it's quite tricky, given that I've never done anything like it before. So when I've been doing that, because there's so much for me to think about, I've found that what can happen is the lyrics become extremely vanilla. It's like they're just, I don't know, cliched, and they're like, it's got no resonance. I mean, if you listen to someone like James Blake, it's like every line of his lyric is, I mean, it's not, the words he uses aren't clever, but they're imbued with this kind of colour. Again, this texture, this feeling, like when your friends are gone. I mean, that's not a complicated lyric, but it just means a lot, right? It's like the darkness after dawn or something. I can't remember, something like that. It's just got this thing, right, which is, well, number one, very him, but it means, it can mean lots of things, and it's very him. It can mean lots of things, but it also is in keeping with the subject of what he's doing. So it's open to interpretation, and it's also very emotive. And obviously he's a master of what he does. So I don't want to in any way compare what I'm doing to what he's doing, because nowhere near, and probably never will be. So but having said that, the lyrics that I have just been improvising have tended to be very kind of basic, for obvious reasons. So now the way it is now isn't the way it's going to be in the future if I practice. So how do I set it up so that in my splurging I am automatically practicing something around this? So I thought, okay, so what I'll do is I will start with a metaphor, which, in fact, I think this is the update of the splurge, because I don't think I started with this. But anyway, here's where I am now. So, because I'm updating the games as I play them. So how about I start with just a simple metaphor which has some kind of resonance to it. So an example, I think the first time I did it was 1,000 stones. Now, what does 1,000 stones mean? Well, it can mean lots of things, but that's the kind of thing I'm thinking. It's got something about it, right? 1,000 stones. It sounds like a good song title, apart from anything else. There probably is one. There probably is a song called 1,000 stones. But anyway, so I start with something like that. And then essentially what I've noticed in what I've been doing, and here's the part where what you do, there's a system going on where what you do informs what you do in the future and how you can change it. So it's a loop. A lot of people have this idea that they've got an idea in their head and they're trying to make it in their head, which is a one directional thing, from head to voice, or from head to lyric, from head to speakers, from head to music. But that is not how it works. It's a dance of design and discovery. If you're wondering what on earth I'm talking about there, check out my PodWalk episode, The Dance of Design and Discovery, where I explain it. It's a system. Your music makes you as much as you make your music. So I've been noticing in my music, in scare quotes, songs, my vocal splurges, let's call them, that the ones that I've really responded to in listening back have a certain structure, just automatically. I didn't design this structure, it's just kind of come out. And the structure is, I start with a very simple, repeated lyric, something like, I don't want to go. And then I repeat it and kind of play with it in certain very simple ways to maybe reinterpret it. And then in the B section, it opens, so you don't actually know what the subject of the song is. And as I've said previously, that I actually like that because it's open to interpretation. But then in the B section, I opened it up, and there's a contrast in the melody, so it might go up or it might change in the way that I'm singing it, but also the lyric opens up. It kind of becomes about something rather than just a random lyric. And then the final section, I come back to the original lyric, but informed by what's happened in the middle. So there's a kind of added bit of colour. And then ideally at the end, there is a payoff. Like right in the last note, there's a payoff where I maybe say the last word of the lyric, which I've not said, or I say another word, or essentially you now understand what the song means. And it's often, the ones I really like, it's often a twist. It's not what you expect. So I start with a very, very simple lyric or line or phrase, like 1,000 Stones. I sing that, I develop it just through repetition, really, and then it opens up, and then at the end, you find out what it's all about. Yeah, it comes back, and then you find out what it's all about. So that structure has happened a few times, just automatically. So I decided to say, right, that is going to be my splurge rules. Now, for instance, today is kind of a bit of a write-off in terms of that splurge game, because I completely forgot. Because I was so kind of concerned and wrapped up in, not concerned, because I was focused on just doing it, I actually didn't review the splurge game up front, so I kind of forgot what I was supposed to be doing. I did remember to find an unusual metaphor for both of the splurges I did. I can't actually remember the second one. Or like, it doesn't have to be unusual metaphor, it can be just a line that maybe means something. So the first one I did today, it's kind of getting towards Christmas here, and I've got 4 little boys, so yeah, it's all about Christmas. And I did this song called Elf on a Shelf, and I don't know if you know about this thing. They have it here in Australia, I don't know if they have it elsewhere, and it's like this little elf, and we don't have one. I find it a bit sinister, actually. So we don't have one, but basically what it is you put this elf on a shelf, and the parents say to the children, or some parents say to their children, that the elf is watching. And if you're bad, you won't get any presents, which strikes me as being, well, it's one way of parenting, let's put it that way, but it's certainly not our way of parenting. So don't want to judge anyone. We don't take that approach, put it that way. So, but it struck me that this elf on the shelf thing is actually very similar to, the idea that there's this critic watching you and telling you when you're being bad is very similar to that kind of monkey brain in your mind. So that's basically the starting point. But what happened was, because I completely forgot about the structure, so I did that one, and then I did a review afterwards, so I'm very happy I did that. And then in the second one, what was it? Oh yeah, I think it was in another lyric, and another vocal splurge quite a while back. There was just this one line which was, "It blows, it sucks, I don't give a." And what I realised, I decided to just start with that starting point. And in singing, I realised that there was a really delicious tension in saying, "It blows, it sucks, I don't give a." And obviously I'm about to say the F word, right? But am I? Because I don't give a actually sounds like I don't give up too. So by just stopping there, it's you don't actually know what I'm saying, because they have opposing meanings. If I say, "It blows, it sucks, I don't give a F," then that means I'm just giving up. Yeah. Whereas if I say, "It blows, it sucks, I don't give up," well, then that's the opposing meaning. And I really enjoyed the tension in that, not knowing what that meant. But again, because I forgot about the splurge game, I didn't really have the structure, and I think I was just really enjoying that thing, if you like. So that's what I'm doing right now. I'm very happy to be back and on track again. What you want to take from this is that when, and if you're writing an album or doing any project at all, when you fall off, it doesn't need to be a big thing. And the little tiny moment of resistance that you feel when you come back to it doesn't mean anything other than you haven't done it for a little while or a long while. Okay? I mean, if it's been a really long while, there's a lot more resistance. Well, there's not so much resistance. I really don't like this word, resistance. If you want why, check out my PodWalk. There's an episode called Art versus War, where I talk about this concept of the resistance. But anyway, there's a lot more that you have to overcome when it's been a long while. Right? But if it's just been a couple of days or even a week, recognize that the resistance is the resistance you feel to doing it is momentary, and is going to be partially, or in fact largely, based on not making decisions, not knowing, not being clear on what you are doing. You've gone off the path, and the first step is to get back on the path. But the good news is a lot of the getting back on the path can be done outside of the studio beforehand. So you go, all right, so what am I going to start with? What am I going to do? What instruments am I going to use? Yeah, what splurge game am I going to play? And that, when you actually come to doing it, you say, okay, I'm going to do it first thing tomorrow morning. I'm going to do it at this time. You've made all these decisions. You set it up so you can just start. That makes getting back to it a lot easier. And what you will find is that the motivation comes from the doing, and much less so the other way around.